I came to claim my inheritance." The words felt too big for a boy whose sneakers were worn thin and whose backpack looked heavier than his shoulders could bear. The room burst into laughter before he even finished the sentence. Three men in tailored suits sat behind a polished white table, their expressions ranging from amusement to irritation. One of them, a well-known millionaire whose name carried weight in every corner of the city, leaned back in his chair and laughed the loudest. Before we continue, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of truth. Stories like this remind us that appearances can be deceiving. The boy stood there, no older than 13, his voice steady but his hands trembling slightly at his sides. His name was Daniel. His mother had passed away 2 months earlier after a long battle with illness. She had worked as a cleaner in the very building they were in now. For years, she had pushed a cart down these hallways before sunrise, wiping down desks, polishing floors, and quietly disappearing before the executives arrived. Daniel used to wait for her after school, sitting in the lobby with a book while she finished her shift. The millionaire's laughter faded into a smirk. He asked the council members if this was some kind of joke. The council, 3 officials responsible for managing estates and charitable trusts, remained silent at first. They had received a sealed letter weeks ago, one that none of them had expected. Daniel swallowed hard and placed a folded envelope on the table. It was worn at the edges, handled many times. Inside was a letter from his mother, along with a birth certificate and a notarized statement signed years earlier. The statement named Daniel as the sole heir to a private trust fund established quietly by the building's original owner, an elderly philanthropist who had passed away the previous year. Years ago, when Daniel was just a baby, his mother had saved that man's life. The philanthropist had collapsed alone in his office late one night. She had found him during her rounds, called emergency services, and stayed by his side until help arrived. During his recovery, he learned about her struggles as a single mother. She had refused any large reward, asking only that she keep her job. Quietly, without public announcement, he set up a trust in her child's name, an inheritance to be released when Daniel turned 13. But there was more. The trust included a clause. If contested or dismissed unfairly by any executive board member, ownership of a percentage of the company's shares would automatically transfer to the child as compensation for obstruction. The millionaire's smile faltered. He had recently purchased controlling shares of the company after the philanthropist's passing, confident that all loose ends had been tied. What he hadn't known was that the old man had been meticulous. The trust was legally binding, protected by the council and sealed until the specified date, which was today. The room shifted from laughter to uneasy silence. Daniel's journey to that room had not been easy. After his mother's death, he had nearly been placed into foster care. The small apartment they rented was no longer affordable. He worked odd jobs after school, carrying groceries, washing cars, trying to stretch what little money remained. Yet through it all, he remembered his mother's words. She had told him again and again that kindness mattered, that truth always found its way into the light. The council chair cleared his throat and confirmed the authenticity of the documents. The signatures matched, the dates aligned, the trust existed exactly as described, and because the millionaire had openly mocked and attempted to dismiss the claim without review, the clause had been triggered. The laughter had cost him more than pride. Daniel wasn't asking for revenge. He wasn't there to humiliate anyone. He simply wanted what his mother had protected for him all these years. His eyes weren't angry. They were tired. Tired from grief. Tired from being underestimated. The council officially announced that the trust fund, worth several $1 million, would be transferred to Daniel immediately. Additionally, a 10% share of the company would be placed in his name until he reached adulthood, managed by a legal guardian appointed by the court. For the first time, the millionaire's face turned pale. The room that once felt so powerful and intimidating now seemed small and quiet. The boy with the worn sneakers had walked in alone, but he walked out as someone impossible to ignore. Yet the true heart of the story isn't about money. In the weeks that followed, Daniel did something no one expected. Instead of moving into a mansion or disappearing from public view, he created a foundation in his mother's name. The foundation provided emergency housing and educational support for children of low-income workers, especially janitors, cleaners, and service staff who often go unseen. He visited schools and spoke softly about dignity. He funded scholarships. He ensured that no child would have to wait alone in a lobby wondering if life would ever change. The millionaire, humbled by the ordeal, publicly apologized months later. He admitted that he had judged a book by its cover. Daniel accepted the apology, not because he needed it, but because forgiveness was something his mother had always taught him. What began as a moment of ridicule became a lesson that rippled across the city. Employees who once felt invisible felt seen. Executives reconsidered how they treated staff. The story spread, not as gossip, but as a reminder. Kindness leaves footprints we may never see. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that no act of goodness is ever wasted. And before we end, comment the word truth below if you believe that what's meant for you will always find its way. Daniel stood one evening outside the building where his mother once worked. The glass doors reflected the sunset, golden and warm. He didn't see wealth when he looked at the building. He saw long nights, tired smiles, and a woman who chose compassion when no one was watching. He adjusted the straps on his backpack, new now, but still carried the same way, and whispered a quiet thank you to the sky. Because sometimes the smallest voice in the room carries the greatest truth. And sometimes the boy who walks in alone walks out carrying not just an inheritance, but a legacy of kindness that no amount of laughter can ever erase.